So in the comments of automation blocks, MathyFX asked, how can I choose a layer by index and put a suffix? I guess you want to put a suffix on the layer name. So let me quickly explain to you how you could write a tool to do exactly this. If you want to add something to the layer name, a suffix, you want to set a property, an attribute of the layer. So layer properties is about these individual parameters, like here, for example, the anchor point or the rotation or an effect control or whatever. But you want to change something else on the layer. So you go here in the layer category, and then you've got here the attributes. You can get attributes and you can set attributes of a layer. We want to set its attribute name, right? Now you need to say of which layer you want to set this. One option to specify a particular layer is to select it here and click the refresh button. And now it enters here a string to describe this. And you can see it says /comp1 : and one more. And this says inside the composition with name comp1, the layer and one more, because this is the name of the layer should be used. But there are many other ways how you can access such a layer. So you can, for example, just say 2, which means in the active composition, the layer with index number 2. So this would be this one here, right? And if we enter here, for example, foo, we run the script, you can see that this layer renamed to foo. Now we don't want to really rename it, but we want to add a suffix. So what we want is to retrieve the actual name that the layer had before, and then append it to this. To retrieve it, we, instead of setting the attribute name, we want to get it. So we go to AE layer and say get attribute name here. And now you could enter here the 2. So this would retrieve the name of layer number 2. And now we want to append something to it. So we combine this. We go here to the text category and say we create a new text. And we combine the existing text we retrieved before with some additional text, some suffix you want to enter. So let's say my suffix. Okay, and we want to set the attribute name now to the old suffix, the old name that we retrieve here, and we append a suffix to it. Let's see if this is working. Current name is foo, and if we run the tool, it says foo my suffix. Yeah, so the suffix was added here now. Now maybe you don't want to hard code the number of this layer here and here. So if you want to change it, you would need to change it here in 2 locations, which is a bit inconvenient. So we can create a variable for this. And let's call this layer index, for example. Now we say we set the layer index to the mass value 2. And now we can use this layer index variable at this location, and I duplicate it and use it here too. And we throw this in the garbage. So now you just have one place where you need to specify the layer index to which this should be added. So if we say here 3 and we run the tool, you can see it added the my suffix to layer number 3. And maybe we also want to have here a space at the beginning, right? Such that there is a space between add one more and my suffix. Now maybe you want to control this with a user interface. Maybe there should a user interface pop up where you can enter this number here. Yeah. So the easiest way to do this is go to user interface and say a prompt with message and some default value. So instead of using here always the 3, we want to prompt please enter a layer index, and the default value should be maybe 1. Okay. And maybe let me rename those here to get rid of the existing suffixes here. Let's say another layer, some layer 2, whatever. Okay, and now if we run this tool, it first prompts here, please enter a layer index, and we can say we want to change layer number 2, for example, and click OK. And now to this layer number 2, the my suffix was added. Yeah? And if we run the script again and say, well, we want to add the suffix to layer number 3, you can see now the suffix was added to layer number 3. Maybe you also want to change the suffix itself in the user interface. This means we need a more complex dialog, not this one here. Yeah? So this would mean we initialize the text with the layer index here with the default value, and now we create a complex dialog, which we need this block here in the user interface category for. I know it looks pretty scary, but just stay with me here for a second so that I can convince you that it's not so difficult to use. This lists just all kinds of user inputs, and if I run the tool, you can see it creates this big dialog here, which shows all the possible values that you can have in such a dialog. But the only things we need is actually one where we can enter a number for a layer index, and one where we can enter the suffix that should be applied to the layer, so such a single line input. So from these examples, we need number 1, 2, 3, 4, and number 4. Okay, you can see number 1 is here this single line text, and number 4 is a type float number. Actually, we need the type int number. We don't want you to allow to enter something like 1.5 when the layer indices are just int numbers, right? So we click here, and in this entry we get rid of all items except 2. And then we make sure we enter the first one is a single line text for our suffix, and the second one is an int number. And here we say, please enter a suffix, and here layer index, or maybe we just say suffix and layer index. And this second input here should use this variable layer index. So we go here to layer index. And this here we want to rename to suffix. This means the result of this input will be stored in a variable suffix. And we can go now here and set this variable suffix also to some default value. So let's say my default suffix, and maybe let me add again a space here at the very beginning. What now is happening, let me actually get rid of this here. What's now happening is that at first this variable layer index is set to 1 and the variable suffix is set to my default suffix. Now the dialog is chosen where these two values are shown, and then you can change those values in the dialog, and after that these variables will have the values to which you actually entered in the dialog. So this means instead of using here my suffix, we just go here and say we want to use the suffix that the user actually entered. Yeah, one more time. Here you initialize the values of your dialog. Here you show the dialog. And here now with layer index and suffix, which we have chosen here and here, you use the values that the user entered in the dialog. So if we run our tool here, and now we say, you can see my default suffix is now shown here in the dialog. And I can say whatever, and add a space at the very beginning, and go here to layer number 3, for example, and click OK. And now you can see that whatever has been added to layer number 3. Okay, I hope this explained to you how you can add a suffix based on a layer index to a layer name. So I hope this explanation was helpful, and thank you for experimenting with automation blocks, and yeah, have fun with the tool.